Imagine this. You are standing on a street corner, frustrated, confused, maybe even scared, and a police officer walks up to you and without even thinking, you reach out and grab their arm to get their attention. Or maybe you push their hand away because you feel like they are being too rough. Or maybe someone near you shoves an officer in the middle of a loud argument. And right in that single second, in that one tiny moment of physical contact, everything changes. And I mean everything. Because what most people do not understand, what most people have never been told, is that touching a police officer is not just a bad idea. It is not just something that might get you in trouble. It is one of the most legally serious actions you can take as a civilian in a free country. And today, we're going to go very slowly, very deeply, very clearly through exactly what happens, legally, physically, and psychologically when a civilian makes physical contact with a law enforcement officer. Because this is not just information, this is knowledge that could one day save your freedom, save your life, or save the life of someone you love. So let us start at the very beginning with the foundational truth that most people never learn in school. In virtually every country in the world, and especially in the United States, police officers are given a special legal status that makes them different from ordinary citizens, meaning that the rules that apply to regular people interacting with each other do not apply the same way when one of those people is a uniformed, on-duty law enforcement officer. And this is not a matter of opinion or politics. This is written directly into the law, and the moment you understand this, everything else will make much more sense. So let us talk about the most important legal concept first, assault on a law enforcement officer. Because in the legal world, the word assault does not always mean what people think it means. Assault in many legal systems does not require that you hurt someone. It does not even require that you fully touch them. It simply means that you intentionally made a threatening move or action toward that person. So if you swing your hand toward an officer, even if you miss, that can already be considered assault. And when the victim of that action is a police officer, the charge is elevated instantly to something far more serious than if you had done the same thing to a regular person. And here is a real-world example to make this completely clear. Imagine two scenarios happening on the same night in the same city. In the first scenario, a man named David gets into an argument with his neighbor and pushes him on the shoulder. David might face a simple misdemeanor charge, maybe pay a fine, maybe get probation, maybe nothing at all happens. In the second scenario, a man named Marcus is stopped by police. He gets angry and he pushes the officer on the shoulder in the exact same way. Marcus is now looking at a felony charge in many states, a charge that can carry years in prison, a permanent criminal record, loss of voting rights, loss of the right to own a firearm, and the complete destruction of his career and reputation. And the only difference between David and Marcus is who they touched, not how hard they pushed, not what they said, not their intention, just who they touched. And this is the weight of what we are talking about today. But we need to go even deeper than that. So let us talk about what actually happens in the moments immediately after you touch an officer, because it is not just one consequence. It's a chain reaction, a domino effect that begins the instant physical contact is made. And the first thing that happens is that the officer's training kicks in. Police officers are trained extensively in how to respond to physical threats. They are trained to treat any unexpected physical contact as a potential threat to their life, because they know that they carry a weapon. They know that someone who grabs them or pushes them might be trying to take that weapon. And this is not paranoia, this is reality. Officers are killed every year by their own weapons being taken from them. So when you touch an officer, their mind does not think, oh, this person is just frustrated. Their mind thinks threat, neutralize, control. And this is why situations escalate so fast. This is why what begins as a small push can turn into someone being taken to the ground in seconds. Because the officer is not overreacting. The officer is following deeply embedded training designed to protect their life. And now let us talk about the legal layers, because they go deeper than most people realize. The first layer is the physical act itself. touching an officer, which we already discussed. But the second layer is what the officer's response looks like. Because whatever force the officer uses to restrain you after you make physical contact is almost always going to be ruled as justified and legal. Meaning if you touch an officer and they tackle you to the ground, that takedown is legal. If they use a control hold that leaves bruises on your wrist, that is legal. If they call for backup and 5 officers help restrain you, that is legal. And this matters because many people in the moment think, I will fight back because they are hurting me. But the moment you touched that officer first, you lost the legal right to claim self-defense. You became the aggressor in the eyes of the law, and everything the officer does after that point is a lawful response to your unlawful action. And this leads us to the third layer, which is the charges you will face. Because touching a police officer does not just result in one charge, it results in multiple charges stacked on top of each other. So let us walk through what that list typically looks like. First, there's assault on a law enforcement officer, which in many states is a felony. Then there's resisting arrest if you pulled away or struggled when they tried to detain you. Then there's obstruction of justice if your action prevented them from doing their job. And depending on the circumstances, there can also be charges like battery, disorderly conduct, and more. And all of these charges together mean that a single moment, a single second of physical contact can result in years in prison. And I want you to truly feel the weight of that. 1 second, years of your life. And this is not hypothetical. This happens every single day in courtrooms across America and around the world. And now let us talk about something that people rarely discuss, which is the psychological and emotional reality of the situation. Because beyond the legal consequences, there is the human reality of what it feels like to be in that moment. Most people who touch a police officer are not criminals. They are not bad people. They are people who are scared or angry or confused or feel like they are not being heard. And the tragedy is that the action they take to express that emotion, reaching out, pushing back, grabbing, is the exact action that makes everything infinitely worse for them. And this is why emotional intelligence in the presence of law enforcement is not weakness, it is survival, it is wisdom, it is the most powerful thing you can do in that moment. And there is a famous example that many legal experts use to explain this. Imagine you are being stopped by an officer and you believe the stop is completely unjustified. You feel it is unfair, you feel it is wrong, and in your anger, you push the officer away and say, "Do not touch me." In that moment, you felt powerful. You felt like you stood up for yourself. But what actually happened is that you handed the officer and the prosecutor every single thing they need to charge you with a felony, to take away your freedom, to derail your entire life. Whereas if you had stayed calm, said nothing, complied in the moment, and then called a lawyer immediately after, you would have kept all of your power, all of your options, and potentially been able to fight the unjust stop in court and win. Because the courts have processes for dealing with police misconduct, there are lawyers who fight those battles every day. There are civil rights organizations that exist specifically for this purpose. But none of those tools are available to you if you are sitting in a jail cell facing felony assault charges. And so the most powerful thing you can do in that moment is nothing. No touching, no physical resistance, no grabbing, no pushing, because your power in that situation is not in your hands. It is in your words afterward, in the lawyer you call, in the complaint you file, in the video footage you document. That is where the real power lives. And now let us talk about some very specific scenarios, because this topic has a lot of nuance and I want to make sure you understand the full picture. The first scenario is accidental contact, because what if you stumble and grab an officer's arm to catch your balance? What if you are in a crowd and get pushed into an officer? In these cases, intent matters enormously. The law does not criminalize accidental contact, and a good officer and a good prosecutor will take context into account. But the important word there is good, because not every encounter has good officers and not every prosecutor is fair, which is why even accidental contact can create problems, and why your demeanor and your words immediately after the contact matter so much. If you immediately say, "I am so sorry, I lost my balance," that is very different from saying nothing or acting aggressively. The second scenario is defensive contact, meaning what if an officer is physically hurting you and you instinctively push their hand away? This is one of the most legally complex situations possible because, legally speaking, you do not have the same right to defend yourself against an officer that you have to defend yourself against a regular person. Courts have consistently held that if an officer is using reasonable force, you cannot lawfully resist that force even if it feels excessive to you. And the reason for this is that the law prefers that these disputes be settled in court after the fact, rather than on the street in the moment, which many people find deeply unsatisfying and unfair, but which is nonetheless the legal reality. So even if you feel the officer is using too much force, the legally correct response is to verbally protest, to say loudly, "You are hurting me, I am not resisting," to repeat your name and the situation for any witnesses or cameras, and to save your fight for the courtroom. The third scenario is touching an off-duty officer, because what if you don't even know the person is a police officer and you get into a physical altercation? This gets complicated, but in general, if the officer identifies themselves as law enforcement before or during the contact, the same heightened charges can apply. And if they were acting in their official capacity, even off-duty, which officers sometimes do, the same legal framework can kick in. So the safest approach is that if anyone identifies themselves as a police officer during a conflict, treat the situation exactly as you would if they were on duty and in uniform. And now let us bring this entire journey to its most important destination, because everything we have talked about today points toward a single truth that I want you to carry with you long after this video ends. The power in an encounter with law enforcement is not physical, it is emotional, it is strategic, and every person, regardless of their background or beliefs about policing, needs to understand that the law was written in a way that makes physical resistance the most costly and self-destructive thing you can do in that moment. Not because the law is always fair, not because every officer is right, not because justice is always served, but because understanding these rules is what gives you the ability to protect yourself. And the people who come out on the other side of police encounters with their freedom and their future intact are the people who kept their hands to themselves, kept their voice calm, kept their mind clear, documented everything they could, and then used every legal tool available to them after the fact. And so I want to leave you with this. Knowledge is the most powerful form of protection that exists. Knowing what happens when you touch a police officer is not about fear. It is not about submitting to authority blindly. It is about understanding the game well enough to play it wisely. It is about protecting your life, your freedom, and your future by making the choice that keeps all of your options open. And if you want to change laws you disagree with, if you want to fight for justice, if you want to hold law enforcement accountable, do it. Fight for it with everything you have, but do it through lawyers, through community organizing, through your vote, through the courts, through the press, through peaceful protest, because those are the tools that actually create change, and those tools are only available to you if you are free. So stay free, stay smart, stay calm, and remember, your hands in your pockets are worth more than your hands on an officer, every single time.